Welcome back to Puddin Creek Rod Shop. I'm glad you guys tuned in again this week. This week we're going to show you some of our craziest barn finds and give you the whole backstory behind them. Now the first story you're going to hear is about an early 30s Chevrolet Moonshine running car that we found in a barn in North Carolina. Now this car wasn't for sale, but we were lucky to be able to hear the story about the car from the owner and to also be able to video it and share it with you guys. So here we go. Let's go deep into the mountains of North Carolina and let this guy tell us about this Moonshine running Chevrolet.
Hit the left front fender of the sheriff's car, knocked it out of the way, it bent the front bumper. They shot the windshield out and the bullet lodged in the back glass. And you see it back there? He had 56 gallons of liquor in there. He drove it under the house. They covered it up. They were sitting there classing burley tobacco, and they put the big wooden crates that they put the tobacco in on top of it and piled burlap sacks on it. He ran in the woods. The sheriff came and they searched the place and didn't find it, and it sat there 65 years. And they called me, the grandchildren did, and said, we want you to have Granddad's old Moonshine car.
Now this guy had the coolest collection of stuff in his barn that you've ever seen, including this little race car with a Curtiss airplane engine in it. Now I bet you don't have one of those in your barn. He also showed me his 1950 Bentley that has an engine that's sealed up to be able to drive through small streams and creeks. Now that's pretty cool. Now out behind his barn, he had what every good car collector needs, a Lamborghini bulldozer, that is. A lot of folks don't know, but before Mr. Lamborghini started making supercars, he mainly made tractors and also some heavy equipment. Now, as we were leaving, he said, wait, I've got one more thing I want to show your little woman. Dinosaur bones. Now, you didn't see that one coming, did you? The next barn find I'm going to tell you about, we didn't find in a barn at all. We found it in an abandoned service station in Knoxville, Tennessee. We bought this car out of an estate. Now, the family told us that their father restored this car in 1955. They used the word restore. I would use the word hot rod. He painted it black lacquer. He had it pinstriped with green pinstripes all over. He had a naugahyde rolling pleat interior put in it with map pockets into kick panels. To me, that's a hot rod. The cool part of this story, the family told me, is that in 1956, their father and their mother eloped in this car. Now, I know a lot of you guys that watch my videos are really up on old cars. You know every detail there is to know. You've been eyeballing this car and you said, hey, Puddin Creek, you never mentioned that he chopped the windshield on this car, but it's obviously chopped. Well, you're half right. This is a late 1931 Deluxe Roadster. The Deluxe Roadster, as some of you already know, has a shorter windshield. It has a 13-inch tall windshield instead of a 15-inch tall. So if you line this up beside a normal A-model Roadster, yes, it looks like it has a chopped windshield. But it's a chopped windshield from Henry Ford. He did it at the factory. Now, when we bought this car, it hadn't been started in decades. It had been sitting in storage, as you can see, for many, many, many years. But on the front seat was a set of old tune-up parts from the 1950s by looking at the boxes. A brand new set of plugs, a brand new set of points. I kind of took that for a challenge. I wanted to see if I could get the car running using the same tune-up parts that the guy bought for it back in the 50s but never installed. So I put the new tune-up parts in, I go through and I clean every electrical connection on the whole car. Let's give it a try. She's a runner, only using the 1950s tune-up parts. Now how about that? Now how can you tell that a Model A Ford is a late 1931 instead of an early 1931? Well, there's an indentation on the firewall for the gas shutoff valve on a late 1931. On early 1931s, the gas shutoff valve was under the dash inside the car. The reason they moved it in the middle of the model year is because Pennsylvania sued the Ford company and said that was a fire hazard to have the gas shutoff valve inside the car. Now, the next barn find I'm going to tell you about, I found while I was buying another car. I had went to look at this 50 Mercury. I made a deal on it. I'm not going to go into details on that story because there's a whole video on our channel. You can go find that video and watch the whole story on the Mercury. But as I finished the deal on the Mercury and shook hands with the guy, he said to me, "You wouldn't be interested in a 40 Ford, would you?" And I said, "What kind of 40 Ford? Like a sedan or a four-door?" He said, "No, a 40 Ford coupe. My brother's got a 40 Ford coupe in a shed." I said, "A 40 Ford coupe? I sure would." Well, it turns out the coupe was a really solid car. It was a project that had been started in the 70s but never finished. It had been painted with green lacquer paint. A lot of the work was already done. We made a deal on the car. I called my buddy to bring his antique rollback, and we hauled it back to Puddin Creek Rod Shop. Now, this was a really killer find. Whoever was working on this car in the 70s had took their time and done some really nice work to it. They took the body off the chassis. The whole chassis had been sandblasted and repainted black. All the rear end, all the suspension, everything had been blasted and painted black. They'd put the body back on there. They'd done all the body work. Then they painted the car with green lacquer paint. Well, all you old hot rodders know what lacquer does over the years. It shrinks and it cracks and it crazes. And this car had a lot of that going on, but it didn't really hurt my feelings. It kind of gave the car some character. I thought it looked cool. Well, we got it unloaded off the truck. We gave it a good bath. Now, usually the way it goes with these old cars with lacquer paint jobs is you break out the compound, you have to compound it. Then you have to break out the Meguiar's number 7 and buff on it for 2 or 3 days. But with this car, it shined like crazy with nothing but a bath. We were completely blown away with the results of just a hand bath. You talk about shining. Well, the paint cleaned up so good that we were really excited to get the bench seat out and see if we could clean it up too. This car had a cool old hot rod bench seat with a rolling pleat design and kind of a gold metal flake thread down in the pleats. It was a really cool seat. Wow, what a difference. All we used on this seat was just some Dawn and hot water and a stiff scrub brush. There's nothing else on it. Next, we start digging around in the trunk to see what we can find. We find in the trunk where the guy in 1976 had ordered from Sacramento Vintage Ford Parts a wiring harness. But like a lot of us, he never got around to installing the wiring harness, and here it is, brand new, all these years later. Now, it was missing a distributor, so I ordered a new crab-type distributor. I put a new set of plug wires on it, some new plugs, and a new coil, and sure enough, we got the old 59 AB flathead running. All right, enough on this car. Let's move on to the next barn find. This time we find us deep in the mountains of North Carolina. We had to drive 5 miles on a gravel road to get to this barn. Do you see it sitting back in there? Can you tell what it is? Can you identify the body lines? Are you telling your wife right now, "I know what old Puddin Creek found. He found a 40 Merc. That's a 40 Merc." And she's looking at you like, "I really could care less." Well, you hit the nail on the head. This is a 1940 Merc coupe, Mercury that is. It's been sitting in this barn since 1966. It does not have a motor in it. The guy's father who owned this, he pulled the motor out, gave it to his friend to get it rebuilt. The friend never returned the motor. That's some kind of friend. And the friend died, and the father died, and now nobody knows where the motor is. So we make a deal on the old Mercury. We take a chain, hook it to the front axle, take my buddy's rollback and drag it out from under that shed it's been living under since 1966. Man, it sure is exciting to drag these old cars out into the daylight for the first time.
Tag on it. 66. Look that in. I guess that's the last time it grew. 66.
I think even the seller was excited to see this old car drug out into the daylight. We were all excited. So we get the old Merc strapped down. Then we got to travel 5 miles down this gravel road again to get back to civilization. How do you like my buddy's rollback? I mean, what else do you think we'd be hauling a 40 Merc barn find on? Well, we stopped off at a barbecue joint in North Carolina, And yeah, we ate everything that didn't eat us first. Then we finally made it back across the mountain and finally made it back here to Puddin' Creek Rod Shop with the old Merc. Once we got it unloaded, I couldn't wait to fire up the old pressure washer and see what was underneath all this barn dust and mold and mildew. Yes, your eyes deceived you. What you thought was patina all the time was just mold. Look how it washes off and you see that black lacquer paint underneath. Now let's do the other fender. This is half the fun of a barn find, is pressure washing it and see what's left underneath. Hey, Puddin' Creek, you're going to get water in the back window. Trust me, there's nothing inside this car that a little water's going to hurt. Now, this car's not going to be built anytime soon. I'm actually just cleaning it up a little bit before I put it in storage. This is going to be a long-term project, but I couldn't wait to clean up this old gauge panel. And man, did it clean up nice. And what magical product did I use to get it to clean up that nice? Windex. Yep. All I did was clean it up with a little Windex. Looks like the old girl only had 59,000 miles on her when she got parked in that barn. Now, like I said before, we're really not going to build this car anytime soon, but I couldn't resist slapping a set of fender skirts on the back of it just to see what it's going to look like when it's eventually built into a full custom. All right, let's move on to our next barn find. Now, this one wasn't technically in a barn either. This was in an old garage building. The first glimpse of it that you're seeing right now is the first glimpse of it that I had when I was standing there in person. I stopped and snapped this picture before I walked any farther. Can you tell what it is? Now, you're sitting in your recliner, and you're telling your wife, I don't see any sun visor on that car, so it's not a Model A. I think that's a 32. I think old Puddin' Creek found a 32 Ford. Well, I was just as excited as you were when I walked in this old garage building and saw this 32 Ford sedan. Man, it sure looks sweet sitting in that corner. This was an old hot rod project that had got stalled somewhere along the way. It was a nice, solid, original 32 body. Someone had already done a rust repair on the bottom of the doors and the quarter panels, but they hadn't actually metal worked it out. The top had been filled, done a pretty nice job, but still needs a lot of metal work. It was sitting on an original 32 frame, had a set of old-style slotted wheels on it. It came with a brand new set of Brookville front fenders, steel repops, and came with a repop 32 grill shell. It also came with a brand new street rod style chassis. You can see we stuck it up underneath the car before we got it all strapped down. When we get everything tied down, the seller says to us, if you like old cars, there's a whole slew of old cars sitting back here in the weeds. Old cars sitting in the weeds? Well, you're singing our song. Let's check out those old cars in the weeds. The guy had several Mercurys back there, but he had this crazy shoebox Ford station wagon Woody. Now that's pretty cool. The last car he showed us had a sad story. It was a Merc that a kid had drove in high school. He'd flipped the Merc. It killed the kid. The kid's father couldn't bear to sell the wreck, so he kept that wrecked Mercury in his basement his whole life, and the car didn't get sold until he died, and then it was sold as part of the estate, and somehow or another ended up back here in the weeds. Now, it was about this time in the story when I had made a deal with one of my hot rod buddies to buy this all-original 32 Ford chassis with a built 401 Buick nailhead in it. He happened to have this just laying around and didn't need it. You're saying to yourself, who has a 32 Ford chassis with a built Buick nailhead in it just laying around? Well, hot rodders, that's who. You never know what a hot rodder has laying around his shop. So the day comes that we decide to mate the 32 sedan body to the chassis with the Buick nailhead in it. I enlist little brother's help to help me push the car outside and pull the body off the old chassis. Just as we get the body off, it starts raining, completely out of nowhere. But are we going to stop for a little rain? Absolutely not. We can dry it off when we get it all put together. We get the body all mounted down on the new frame. We take the rear fenders off. We pull a grill shell off the wall and slap on the front of it. And bam, we've got ourselves a hot rod. Now, I don't know about you, but to me, that's looking pretty mean. I may never get around to ever bolting the fenders back on this car. Now, my newest employee was supposed to be helping me work on this car, but he said, no way, it's break time. Now, this employee, he likes a lot of brakes, and he likes them close together. When I hired him, I told him I was going to be fair with him. I was going to pay him just exactly what he was worth. He said, no way, I can't work for that. Well, you drive a hard bargain, but welcome to the Puddin Creek Rod Shop team. Our next crazy find was this 1959 International shop truck. Any 1959 International truck has some killer body lines and a super cool grill, but this truck is special. This is a real deal shop truck from El Dorado, Kansas that was owned by the Bear Alignment Shop. So your question to me is, how did this truck get from El Dorado, Kansas to East Tennessee? Well, it was in a barn in Kansas. Then it got pulled out for an estate auction. Then a friend of mine bought it at the estate auction, sold it to my friend who lives in Indiana. I made a deal to buy the truck from my friend. He had to come to East Tennessee to pick up a tubing bender, and he said, I'll just drop it off for you on my way. Well, he shows up in the middle of the night and in the middle of a thunderstorm. Just working by the trailer lights and the flashlights that we had in our hands, we get the truck unstrapped and unloaded in the pouring rain. It's pitch black. I can't really tell much about it, but the next morning I'm up bright and early to see what the truck looks like. It's soaking wet, but it sure looks cool. It has a killer patina. The logo on the door is just too cool. And it has 4 flat tires, so it almost sits like it's lowered. Our next barn find come from an ad on Marketplace. I'd saw the ad on Marketplace for a 34 Ford 2-door sedan that was really cheap. And once I got there to look at it, I found out why it was so cheap. It was rough. And when I say rough, I mean as rough as a night in jail. The seller was an older gentleman who had just pieced the car together out of extra parts. Kind of an art project almost. As we're loading the car up, the seller and I get to talking about cars and other hobbies, and he asked me what else I'm into. I tell him I play a little music. What kind, he says. I play a little country music. He says, oh, if you like country music, you might have heard of my grandson. He plays country music. I say, what's your grandson's name? Morgan Wallen, he says. Well, when I said I like country music, I meant old school country music. Willie, Wallen, Hank Jr. So I said, no, I don't think I've ever heard of your grandson, but I'll look him up when I get home. So that afternoon, I'm back working in the shop, and the kiddo shows up holding this. She says the Civic fell off my Honda Civic. So we get her Civic emblem glued back on, and I say, oh, by the way, have you ever heard of a country singer named Morgan Wallen? And the kiddo says, yeah, he's like the biggest country singer on the radio right now. Why? Well, because I bought a car from his grandpa this morning. And the kiddo says, wait, you know Morgan Wallen? I said, no, I know his grandpa. Oh, she says, I guess that wasn't as impressive. So now I've got Morgan Wallen's grandpa's old car sitting out in front of my shop for yard art. Now, it sat there all summer, and everybody really enjoyed it. People would ask me, what kind of old gangster car is that sitting in front of your shop? People would take pictures with it. Guys would visit my shop, and they'd always have to walk around it and check it out. They always came to kind of the same conclusion. Man, that sure is a cool car, but boy, it sure is rough. The little woman found a rare pedal car, so where do we take a picture of it? Out in front of Morgan Wallen's grandpa's 34 Ford, why not? So the car sat out in front of the shop through rainstorms. And then winter came, and it got snowed on a few times. Now, I don't have to tell you old hot rodders, because you all know that the rain and the snow, they're not helping this old car at all. It's just going to disintegrate out in this weather. So before spring gets here, I've already decided this car's not going to be yard art anymore. When spring gets here, I'm going to start working on it and at least make it a nice roller. I had a good original set of Henry Ford running boards, so one of the first things I did was get those bolted up to the car. Next, I noticed the whole front cross member is missing. The spring is just setting up against the frame. So So I dig around in my parts pile and I find an original Henry Ford front cross member and get it installed. I also install a original Henry Ford radiator so we can mount the grill properly. I get the car all put back together and now it's starting to look like something. Well, around here, barn finds come and barn finds go. And this one's headed to its new home in Montana. Well, my next barn find wasn't found in a barn at all, and I wasn't even the one who found it. You're saying Puddin' Creek, you're really stretching this barn find thing. Well, maybe, but you guys are going to want to see this one. You see, my buddy found this old car in an abandoned aircraft hangar, and I just went along with him to help him dig it out. Now, all you old hot rodders should be sitting on your couch and already telling your wife what kind of car this is. If you can't identify this car by just looking at the grill, then you guys are slipping on me. That's right, it's a shoebox Ford. We jack it up with floor jacks, put rollers under the wheels, then we push it up toward the front of this old aircraft hangar, close enough that my buddy can back up with the rollback and get the winch hooked to it. That's right, it's your all's favorite rollback. We're putting it to work again. The next barn find we had to pick up in the dark. The guy had such a crazy work schedule he could only meet us at night, so we had to go buy a black car in pitch black darkness. I know, that doesn't sound very smart. Little brother went with me, and we stopped on the way back under a street lamp just to check our straps, and I took this one picture. The next morning, the little woman and I were both anxious to see what the car looked like. She climbed right up on the car trailer and started digging around inside. She found this old tube patch kit. Hold tight tube patch. I mean, what else would you name a tube patch kit? Looks like the guy paid 17 cents for it at Arlen's department stores. Does anybody remember Arlen's department store? We get the car unloaded and start to check it out. Now, this car is an original. I mean, it really hasn't been messed with at all. This is just the way you want to find them. The door latches work smooth as silk. The floor is solid, no rust. Looks like it has what I guess is the original interior still in it. This car would have made a great hot rod, but for me it's just really too nice to cut up. To keep it, I would just have to keep it original, and I'm not really into original cars, so we'll pass this one on and let somebody else enjoy it. A really solid original paint, rust-free car like this, they don't sit around long. This one got gone fast. One day. The last car we're going to talk about I found in a shed in Powell, Tennessee. I don't think this car had been in a shed all of its life because it was super rusty. I think it had been outside for a long time before it got put in the shed. Almost every panel on this car had a hole that you could stick your hand through. I mean, it was bad. It was so bad, my good buddy nicknamed the car Holly Holy. Now, here's the part of the story that you guys are not going to like. This car was so bad that I just deemed it too bad to build, too bad for anyone to want to mess with. So I decided to just make it yard art. The pictures you're looking at right now are from about 10 years ago. I planted the Ford out in the front yard near the road. Everyone in the family's really enjoyed it. People coming in and out of the hot rod shop have enjoyed it. The neighbors have enjoyed it. We all the time see people stopped out front, taking pictures of it. So it's serving a purpose. Even though it didn't get restored or turned into a hot rod, it's serving its life out as a nice piece of yard art. Well, that's our video for this week. We hope you guys are enjoying the channel. Come back every Monday at noon for a new episode. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Tell your friends about Puddin' Creek Rod Shop. Thank you guys for watching.